date is April 24th, 2023. Space UK was undeniably at his peak, with 2 Best Player awards, the #1 spot on the leaderboards, and a YouTube channel with millions of views. He was the best player the game had ever seen. On this day, he would also be banned from competing, with his legacy undone forever.
He was forced to confess. It was not something that he did willingly.
Space hacking is not victimless. There are a ton of people who have been directly affected, and a lot of my friends were.
I know how much money you made. How can you make that much money and not feel guilty?
I mean, I remember when they took his records off the demon list. I remember talking about it with him in like a private group chat. He just said that they were just checking because there was a new hacking method found or something, and they wanted to just be sure. So I never really thought that he hacked.
Space's account had suddenly just disappeared from the Demonist stats viewer. When this happens, this usually can only mean one or two things. He either quit the game and deleted his account, or...
I remember just seeing his profile being off the list, and I was confused at that time because no one really had any information. But I was like, I wouldn't be surprised if he ended up being cheating by that point, because I connected the dots by that point already.
The community was left in a pretty confusing situation. Nobody really knew what was going on until... It turns out, while they were looking into space for another reason, the headless moderator Paco found something else.
There had been a discussion about a person who had come up with some new ways of hacking that we would be able to catch, but that would require a decent amount of searching for. And I had thought that this person was in connection with Space UK, and that ended up not being true. But when I looked at his Acheron video, it turned out that some things were pretty off about it.
What Paco had noticed was not something that you would just casually see or even look for. Really tiny and inconsistent variations in his click timings. This means that one of his clicks could be completely frame perfect, but the next jump would be 2 frames delayed, or maybe 3. Some even had a delay of 5 entire frames, which was not normal, to say the least. But hey, it could have been anything, honestly. A bad recording software like Shadowplay might introduce tiny delays into recordings.
I didn't think a ton of it, but I went on to check another one of his things, and I noticed that same sort of issue rising up each time that I checked.
Paco also found something else, however. Around 6% in this completion from space, you can hear a mysterious second click. This immediately was seen as a giant red flag, because usually this was a sign of a player using a macro, which is a third-party tool that sort of allows you to record inputs and then have the game play them back for you, creating what looks like a normal run to everyone else. But if Space was using a macro, why can we hear his mouse clicks throughout the entire completion? Oh no.
Obviously, it's incredibly difficult to go out and make a claim like, I think the best player ever is cheating, because making the claim is just such an outlandish thing unless you have 100% proof, which was surprisingly difficult to find.
So, considering all of the inconsistencies, Paco decided enough was enough. The video would go up on the 25th of April. The community was set ablaze. It was honestly a mixed camp, with one side thinking it was a shitpost and the other side finally connecting the dots. If this was true, this would mean that every completion that Space uploaded after becoming the 2nd player to ever beat the entire main list were cheated. Just to remind you, this includes Acheron, the #1 hardest level at the time. These completions were some of Space's most recent heavy achievements that the community praised him for, and now we had reasonable proof to believe that he cheated all of them. So, where was Space in all of this? Well, later on that day, he would respond. every main list after my Sephiroth main list completion in May 8th, 2022 was hacked. I lost interest in actually playing the game and wanted to see how long I could go without being caught. Hacked completions include Aerial Gleam, Oblivion, Abyss of Darkness, The Hallucination, Q-Key. Oh, I forgot, Acheron 2. This was a deep blow to the community. He admitted to cheating basically every single completion in the past year, which included Acheron. He said it so nonchalantly too. He just got bored of the game and wanted to see how long he could get away with it. As if the community and all its players trying their best to compete were just a bunch of toys he could play with. I also love how he just forgot for a second that he cheated Acheron too. Something odd that didn't go unnoticed. The band-aid was off. Space came out and admitted to cheating the past year of his achievements. Countless First Victor titles that symbolized his dominance in the game basically meant null now. But honestly, everyone makes mistakes. Maybe the pressure you receive as a top player got to him and eventually led to him cheating. He still was a great player. The last year of faking his accomplishments should not completely nullify the insane achievements from 2021. You know, verifying Slaughterhouse and being voted as the best player of that year. I'm sorry, Dean, but the second band-aid needs to come off too.
So yeah, like I said, I woke up and I got a DM and it said, "Good job on verifying Slaughterhouse." And I was like, there's no way this guy actually, like, there's no way this can be real. Like there's no way this actually just happened.
The moment Space was exposed on the first day, a massive investigation into all his completions and all his raw footage was started. In that investigation, not much came up. He would pass all the normal checks a legit player would too. The only things that were a reoccurring problem in almost all of his raw footage were the inconsistent click timings. But one person from the challenge list found something else. A watermark.
The creator of Zbot was in closer connection to the challenge list than the demon list. So he had posted about the watermark at some point, but it had never really gotten widespread knowledge throughout the demon list as a whole. But he looked back through old messages, I believe, and found that there was a watermark and decided to check it with Space's stuff, and it came up as hacked.
Wow. Modding is a big part of Geometry Dash today. It makes the game more accessible for less fortunate players that can't afford 240Hz monitors, for example. They offer a wide variety of quality of life improvements that make everyone's experience with the game better. However, since the dawn of GD modding, there always have been big concerns about people using mods for nefarious reasons like cheating completions and trying to pass them off as legit. For this reason, mod authors have worked together with the list teams over the years to include really obscure and tiny watermarks in their mods. Watermarks that only they and the list teams know about. This means that if anyone would try and pass off a modified run as a legit one, the demon list moderators could check for these watermarks to see if anything fishy was going on. And exactly this is what turned Space from just another cheater to the biggest fraud the game has ever seen.
And it's been so long, like 2021. Did I really just not know it for all this time? So that was all the thoughts running through my mind. And I open, Twitter, and I just see, Space UK. I hacked Slaughterhouse. I hacked Acheron. Everything, whatever. Everything IB past the golden has been hacked.
Seemingly overnight, Doggy was promoted from first victor of Slaughterhouse to the actual first player to ever beat that level legit. It wasn't Space who verified Slaughterhouse, it was Doggy. All because of a measly 64 pixels on the level completion screen. The Cbot watermark that eventually got Space caught changes the size of the level complete text at the end of every level completed. It doesn't change it in an obvious way, it changes it by 64 pixels. But that's not all. Because of how the game works, even a texture pack or stuff like that would not really be able to circumvent this. Because it's not really the size change that we're looking at the ratio between the level complete text upon entering the finish and the level complete text in the menu that appears after. Normally, these two texts side by side have a ratio of approximately 72%. But if you activate Cbot at any point during the completion, that ratio shrinks to a 68.12%. And this is what got Space caught. Because it turns out, almost all of his completions have this watermark. And combined with the fact that we know he has inconsistent click timings in all of his raw footage, we basically can confirm that what he did was learn a level to the point where he would have every input memorized. He then would record a macro that would activate upon pressing a predetermined keybind, and then he would record himself playing the first 5 to 10% legit, activating the macro and just clicking over the inputs just to fake the audio. This was Space's method that got him past all proof checks for almost 3 years. But how? How did this slip for so long? The answer is surprisingly complicated.
Not only was he pretty decent at the way that he was hacking, but he was incredibly good at sort of socially engineering the way in which he interacted with people to come off as legit.
He was actually a good player, so it didn't look suspicious on stream and when he was in calls with us, because he actually could play the levels. He did learn them and like actually play them, but when it came to completing them, he didn't do that. He just botted them.
From an outsider's point of view, it's easy to blame the Demonist mods for not checking all these things way earlier. They should have been more skeptical of him, especially at the start, when he beat the Golden as his 5th ever demon. But what an outsider won't know is that Space's rise to fame was in an era where cheat detection just wasn't as developed as it is now. He was able to kickstart momentum in an era where other players were doing ridiculous things already. It was easy to point at players like Enswish and almost use them as a sort of alibi for Space. If people like Enswish could do it, why not him? This allowed him to get the ball rolling at the perfect moment. And once he had momentum, it sort of became a feedback loop. The mere fact that a player that was so prevalent and in your face about how good he was hasn't been caught yet gave him credit. Why look into him when it seems so obvious that he would have been caught already if he really was faking it? If you combine this with the fact that he was friends with most of the top players, it is maybe easier to understand why certain things were just overlooked. This, in my opinion, is basically why it took so long for him to get caught.
Like I said, Space was a social engineer. That's kind of what pushed him to be legit in people's eyes. It wasn't about how he was playing. It was about how he treated the game, how he was so nice in the community, how he was so genuine, it seemed like. That everyone kind of blindly believed him off of that and didn't really assume he was hacking at any point.
I don't even think it's impossible to imagine that he could have been a hacker. I think it's more impossible to imagine that we didn't catch him yet. So it's like he just can't be.
If there is any lesson that I was taught through this entire situation, it's that the best way to lie is to tell the truth. And you will see later on what I mean by that. Nah, this guy. What? But until then, I kind of want to divert the attention away from Space. There has been so many people that were hurt by his actions. From players that got years of their lives stolen from them, to others who would have received so much more attention and success if it wasn't for Space. Let's talk about the players who actually deserve to be in the spotlight. Oh, you actually were number 1 at some point?
Yeah, I mean, I was number 1 once when Space removed his profile.
That's the only reason you were number 1 is because he temporarily removed his profile.
So if he never was there, I would have been number 1 for quite a bit of time, I think.
Fuck, how does that feel?
It feels kind of shit. It feels like a punch to the gut.
Damn, you basically got robbed.
Yeah.
Wolves was considered one of the best players around 2021. He is currently the world record holder of most extreme demons ever beaten, sitting at over 450 completed extremes. An achievement like this is not something you can do in a couple of months. It's something that takes years of hard work and determination. And the worst thing about all of this is he actually was kind of close to Space. They were friends.
Yeah, he said here as well on our Twitter DMs, he said, me removing my list profile probably makes more sense now. He considered it to just remove and stop, but he was just so addicted to being above everyone else. So he came back. That's what makes me think that he just doesn't care. He just thinks about himself.
Wolves is one of 6 players that were affected by Space in this way. If it wasn't for Space cheating himself to the top, they would have been considered the best player instead, which is something that they will never be able to get back. Some other names include Spiritex, Thunder BT, Jeller, Snowballer, and Crisis. At that moment in time, right, like leading right up to the whole exposal, were you still in close contact with Space at that moment? Like a VC the day before? Like,
Yeah,
oh shit.
we've been talking like basically daily for 2 years.
Damn. Out of all of the people I interviewed, Crisis probably was the closest to Space. And just like Wolves, they kinda were rivals.
2. I was number 2 behind Space for a long time.
Oh shit, okay.
Yep. Never could get number 1.
Do you remember like roughly how long you kept that number 2 spot?
I guess like 4 to 6 months.
Imagine being friends with someone for over 2 years, just to later find out that they have been actively lying to your face the entire time. Not just a harmless lie either, you were competing against each other, something that especially between friends should happen on a basis of fairness and trust. But for some reason, no matter how hard you try, you can never catch up. And then one day, you find out why. Not because your friend wanted to tell you, but because he was forced to tell you.
A day later, they announced that he just hacked everything, and that really hit me deep. I was happy and sad and annoyed at the same time. I was happy at first because I realized that I was actually number 1 for a while, but then I realized that I never got the feeling of being number 1, so it didn't feel good.
Wolves and Crisis were, and to this day are, some of the best players this game has ever seen. To know that they never really got their chance to be at the top just because of Space feels horrible. Oh, were you the first victor of Firework?
I was, yeah. I mean, after Space.
Yeah. Without Space, Firework would have been the number 1 level at the top, because he would have never verified Slaughterhouse. This would mean that Crisis would have been the first victor of that level instead of Space, with the verifier being Trick, who also has his story to tell.
There's a level called Firework that I was playing for around a year, but I knew the level way before that.
What does Firework mean to you?
Firework meant basically the entire game for me at the time that I was verifying it, because Firework was just kind of my big break in the community. Like, it was so fast, everyone just knew me all of a sudden. I was never used to being in the limelight like that. So it means a lot to me in terms of everything that I've done in the game. It's kind of my symbol.
Okay. Trick was an upcoming player looking to prove himself to everyone at the time. To do that, he promised the original creators of Firework that he could verify it and make it become the number 1 hardest demon in the game. And with that, began his 1-year-long journey to try and prove to everyone that he was good enough to beat it. During this journey, he spent roughly 234,000 attempts.
I was trying to verify it, to prove to basically everyone that I was actually a good player and that, you know, I deserved the verification. Because at that time, you know, no one knew me, so everyone just thought I was going to drop it like everyone else did. There was like 7 verifiers before me that were all top players and they couldn't do it.
They all dropped it?
Yeah, like it was all top players too. It was like really notable top players in the community. Firework was just so far ahead of anything in difficulty during the time that I don't even think any top player felt it to be reasonable.
At some point in Trick's journey, the whole Slaughterhouse thing happened. It was announced that there would be a closed verification race, and Trick was even invited to be part of it.
Around when Doggy dropped it and there became a verification race, that I first played the level and realized, like, damn, this level is way harder than Firework, and like I really got scared. And then when Space started progressing just like so quickly on it, like that was really hard for me.
All of a sudden, this level basically came out of nowhere, threatening to throw all of Trick's hard work straight out the window. At this point, he almost was a year into his journey of verifying Firework, and to see Space just ripping through Slaughterhouse must have been horrifying to watch. How long did it take Space to beat Slaughterhouse?
No more than a week. Less than a week, probably. It was crazy. That's what I mean by he was progressing so quickly, you know. It was hard for me just to see such a dominant player, like, because at that time I was really trying to work on my skill as well, so during that time it was just...
As we know, Space would then eventually go on to verify Slaughterhouse 5 days before Trick was able to verify Firework, stealing away a year of hard work and determination. It was supposed to be Trick with Firework, but at the top sat Space with Slaughterhouse. Knowing what we do now, we of course know that Trick actually succeeded with his dream. He was the verifier of the top 1 demon, it's just neither him or anyone else knew it. It's almost like Space was holding the entire demon list hostage. If you didn't know, the way they rank levels is based on the opinions of the people that have actually beaten them. And since Space was such a prevalent and good player, he had a lot of control over where levels would be placed. Sadly, to the detriment of a lot of other top players.
When he confessed that he hacked, it brought new context to like so much stuff. Like at the time when he beat Hard Machine, which is a level that I verified, he said it was only about Zodiac difficulty. But the other people who had been in it eventually said that it should be harder than Tartarus, and they still do say that to this day.
Varium is an incredible player that started playing this game in 2014. This means he's been going at this now for almost 9 years, and ever since he started playing, he always had one dream.
I just want to see myself at the top. I just want to see myself with the achievement of having beaten the hardest thing that anyone has done in the game.
Back in 2021, he got really close to doing this. He was the verifier of a level called Hard Machine. He went for an incredible journey and spent over 40,000 attempts to finally verify it. And once he did, it was all about waiting for other top players to beat it and then asking them how hard they thought the level was, including Space.
Back then, they said, well, maybe it isn't actually that hard because, you know, Space beat it so quick that maybe he's right and maybe it's just my personal experience that made it so hard and it's not actually that hard inherently.
In typical Space fashion, it only took him 7,000 attempts to actually beat Hard Machine. His opinion, number 5. Varium thinks that Space's opinion of the level massively influenced the opinions of other top players at the time.
And Space's influence just sort of robbed me of my dream. As soon as I realized that, well, for the next few days, I just couldn't stop thinking about how I was right there and I could have had it, but then Space sort of took that away from me, and now I have to go through the biggest difficulty jump that this game has ever seen.
Today, we basically know that if it wasn't for Space and his superior skill, Hard Machine probably would have placed around number 1, meaning Varium would have achieved his dream of beating the current hardest level. He's still trying to this day, by the way, so if there's anyone out there that's looking for a top 1 verifier, there's a free agent right there that you could pick up. But make sure to tell him I said hi.
I respected this man so much, and I liked this guy. He was such a chill guy, and now I have to, like, you know, deal with him being a cheater.
Out of all of the players that were robbed of achievements by Space, Doggy's story especially stood out to me. As I mentioned earlier, with Space being exposed as a cheater, it meant that the first victor of Slaughterhouse was actually the first ever player to beat it legit. In this case, it was Doggy. For 1.5 years, neither the community or Doggy had any idea that he actually was the one to officially dethrone Tartarus from its number 1 spot. The exposure that should have been a reward for all of his hard work for taking the first step past Tartarus is basically something that he will never get back.
Honestly, since he went so long without even, like, saying anything, I don't even think he felt bad, bro. He was just, like, desensitized to it. I honestly don't think there would be a time where it would come out unless it was like years later after his time in this community.
But that's not everything. Something that I basically brushed over in this video is Acheron. Acheron is the current hardest level on the demon list, a level that far surpasses any other. The player who verified that level was Zoink, another complete anomaly in the community. And the first victor was Space, who basically stole that title away from Doggy as well.
But I feel like the first emotion before being disappointed was kind of a positive emotion, because I was like, I was the first victor of Acheron, and all that effort didn't go to, you know, waste. But in the end, I was kind of disappointed in this man.
Space's actions are a deep cut into the competitive integrity of the game. It's not only some of the biggest achievements in the past years that were stolen, but also the trust us normal casual players have in top players. With Space coming out as a cheater, we don't know who to trust anymore. Especially when current top players like Zoink share a very similar origin story with Space, coming out of nowhere and all of a sudden just demolishing the entire demon list. Do you think there are more top players right now, like let's say in the top 20, that are cheating right now?
Alright, so Zoink better be cheating or else nothing makes sense. So I'm gonna say Zoink is cheating because how? Like, this guy makes no sense. And he's also Space 2.0, like he's a Space clone. He might be a Space alt, so like I would not be surprised, to be honest. This guy's way too good. And if he's not hacking, I don't even know that's possible. So Zoink, good job if you're not hacking. There's some people that have beaten Slaughterhouse that just have these weird ass names like YOLO Mode Boom. I want to call it YOLO Mode Boom. You did not beat Slaughterhouse in my opinion. Alright, that's all.
It was important to me to end this segment on a bit of a lighter note. Doggy and all of the other players took this entire thing incredibly well, and they have nothing but the uppermost respect from me. I will leave this segment with a recording of the 2022 Best Player Awards, just to show you why I really wanted to include Doggy. You might be wondering, where is Space in all of this now? How did he treat the situation, and what does this mean for him going into the future? He uploaded a twitlonger on the 26th of April. This was only a day after his initial exposal. The twitlonger is basically him explaining how this entire thing started and why he kept going with it. In the twitlonger, he explains that the catalyst for all of this was his completion of the Golden. The one claim to fame he had at the start of all of this was that Golden was his 5th ever demon. Apparently, he accidentally had the no-clip cheat turned on during that attempt and only realized 20 minutes after that his completion was illegitimate, which makes sense, since he literally beat it on the first attempt of that session, where it would be harder to notice that you accidentally have no clip turned on. He then decided to submit the record anyway, on the basis of, meh, if I get caught, I will just quit the game, which, okay, what kind of mentality is that? To his surprise, the record was accepted, and that is what made him realize he could get away with way more. He claims that after the Golden, he beat the level Kinos legit, but in his completion, OBS had a bug that froze his screen so it wasn't recorded. So he decided to download Cbot and just click over a macro for the Kinos completion we all knew until now. Once again, it was accepted, showing him he could get away with way more, and from that point on, he just let loose and cheated everything. In the twitlonger, he also apologizes to other players and says he wants to make up for it by paying back the money that he made for his YouTube videos. This means Trick, Sonic, Doggy, Jeller, Crisis and Skizzle should receive the ad revenue money Space made from stealing their first Victor titles. Honestly, respect for trying to pay the money back. It shows to me that he at least to some extent realizes the damage that he's caused over the years. I can only confirm that so far, Trick has been the only person that has received money from Space. So it seems like he's going through with what he said. However, even if he pays the money back, I don't think that makes up for what he did.
I don't know if I would like accept that money from him. But I was like, at least he's trying to do something.
What really sticks out to me in this entire situation is how reluctant Space was to tell the truth throughout all of this. It took multiple stages of exposals for him to admit what we think is the entire truth right now. I don't think he would have ever come out with this unless he was caught. And even at that point, he still tried to damage control. He still tried to play it off. With the first click delay exposal, he tried getting away with saying everything after him completing the entire main list was cheated, because he apparently had gotten bored with the game at that point. Upon being questioned why he didn't just cheat the verification of a new top 1 level above Acheron, he said he didn't want to do it to a verification. Even at that point, he was still lying straight into the face of his close friends, reassuring them that it doesn't go that deep and everything else is still legit. When evidence came out to disprove even that, he finally dropped the ball and said everything was cheated and deleted his YouTube channel. Space has since then created a new YouTube channel where he streamed himself attempting to beat the Golden legit this time, as a sort of way to add closure to his entire situation. And the craziest thing is, on the 5th of May, he actually did it. Looking at all of these comments, I get a really uneasy feeling. Almost like people forgave Space a bit too quickly maybe. Maybe I just have trust issues, but I cannot turn around and just forgive someone knowing how long this guy went and how many achievements he's stolen just for his personal gain. And even now, I still have reason to not believe him and what he said in his tweet longer. Because look at this. This is the in-game leaderboard of the level Cataclysm. Look who we have here at rank 120. And just under Space, we have a player called Nuggles, who thankfully uploaded their Cataclysm completion to YouTube so we can date it. Thanks, Nuggles. This means Space beat Cataclysm roughly around June 2020, which would predate his Golden completion. This means that the Golden wasn't even his 5th ever demon. The one claim to fame that Space used to get notoriety is now shrouded in doubt for me, just because of this. Even in 2023, he still claimed to have never beaten Cataclysm, dropping it after getting 77% apparently. But here we have the in-game leaderboard clearly disproving just that. Unless he also used no-clip cheats for Cataclysm and just never recorded or tried to pass it off as legit, which would open an entire new bag of worms that I don't feel like going anywhere near. I just have a gut feeling that he still hasn't told the entire truth. I personally don't believe him when he says he accidentally no-clipped the Golden, and I also don't believe that he got a frozen OBS bug on his Keynote completion. Let me show you the main reason why I just cannot believe this guy, right next to comments that I found on YouTube or Twitter. Remember when I said earlier that the best way to lie is to tell the truth? Here's what I meant by that. This guy literally said he was cheating over the years, and we all wrote it off as his funny, sarcastic way of making fun of people trying to claim that he's not legit. And there's so many of them. Like, what? Do you think he deserves a second chance?
Oh no, absolutely not, no. When people cheat like this, especially this much, like hiding it for 3 years, just no.
In GD, if you are caught as a hacker, that is like your legacy. Like Andromeda confessed to hacking and rebeat everything legitimately. People still view him as a hacker.
I don't think that he should be engaging with the community now, but I'd like to see him make some sort of return maybe a few years from now, and sort of how Cyclic did when he hacked Sonic Wave.
Yeah, no, he just really needs actual consequences to learn from this, I think. That's the best thing we can do for him as friends.
It's something I'll have to think about over the course of a long time, see how things pan out, I think.
Is there any chance for redemption for him?
In my eyes, not at all. If I'm honest, I don't think I would have any respect for him as a player, even if he was legit. I don't see any chance of him ever coming back to the community, and I honestly think it's disrespectful of him to even try to make any sort of comeback right now.
Okay.
If his closest friends don't show him what lying really does, and we just were too lenient about it, then this might happen again with him in the future with some other thing,
No. I don't think there is. But if he tried, just kept beating levels and stuff, there would be a side of the community that would forgive him, because that's what always happens.
I mean, just personally, friend to friend, I think I'll forgive him. But yeah, I also think I've just developed a little bit of Stockholm syndrome towards him, honestly.
Okay, but you guys are not hanging out in VCs anymore, right?
Not really, no.
Do you miss doing that?
I do. I really do.
Crisis seems like a really great friend to have. Listen, I care about this game. Geometry Dash and its players have done so much for me over the years, from helping me find my passion to create, to linking me up with so many people that I can now call my closest friends. I wanted to take this moment and snapshot it in time. This way future generations of players have an accurate account of all the context and emotions involved. It is important now to not lose trust in top players. Instead, we should go support the ones that you truly think deserve it. From the players mentioned in this video to other insane anomalies like Vision, who just the other day beat the level Silent Clubstep in over 800,000 attempts. With the new update releasing in October, I'm predicting that this game and all its players have a very healthy future ahead. So let's make sure that we keep shooting for those stars, keep pushing the limits and explore new boundaries. We let nobody tell us that we shouldn't care about a $4 mobile game, because it is the best $4 mobile game out there. What are you doing? Wait, what is that? No, stop, stop, stop!